Hello everyone, thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Max, and today I'm going to be talking about a recent interview that was done with the writer of Loki, Michael Waldron, and what it can mean for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Alright, so recently Michael Waldron did an interview with Fandom, and they touched upon a lot of aspects of the Loki show in general. And one of the scenes in episode 1 was Loki being shown and Mobius mentioning the death of Phil Coulson in Avengers. Now, us Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans, we know that Phil comes back, he's resurrected, and that kind of happens after Loki's story has finished. So there wasn't really a need for them to bring up the return of Phil, and now we've kind of gotten more information regarding the way that they're looking at this, and I don't think it necessarily means that they're retconning Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or if even the statement should be taken seriously, and I'll explain why in a second. But the statement and the quote, to be exact, is as to whether they played around with bringing Phil Coulson back. He said, no, look, this is one other tendril in the multiverse. Perhaps just seeing the mention of Phil Coulson, again, the very fact that it raises those questions is exciting. So it sounds like here he's saying that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. could be a multiverse story. Now, we know that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ties into the MCU perfectly. It was created as a show set in the MCU, the tagline with the show going with the films, as shared by accounts on Twitter, such as the official Avengers account, was it's all connected. That's what these shows were going by in the beginning. I believe Agent Carter had it too, and then as they separated over the years, they stopped using that tagline. Now, yes, he says it could be a part of the multiverse here, but as we know from previous interviews, these directors, unless they watched the show, they weren't really briefed on what happened in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And Kevin Feige's always been very open to the possibility of bringing things back, but he's never said something as direct as this. And I think this could mean one of two things. Either one, behind the scenes, Marvel has kind of retconned Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. into a multiverse story, or two, Michael Waldron is not exactly aware of what happened in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he wasn't really given any rules to work within that storyline because it wouldn't affect Loki as a show, and he's just saying this because he's not, quite aware that it is tied to the MCU. Now, yes, I will say this quote is kind of worrisome the way it was worded. It does sound like he is speaking from, he's very direct in saying that he thinks it could be a multiverse thing. But it seems like with the way that it's worded, he also is not really setting that in stone. He's saying that the fact that this question is raised is exciting. So he's using it more of a way of saying, okay, well, the fact that people are talking about these possibilities is interesting. And I think saying it's a multiverse story when there's not really anything in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that has contradicted the MCU or played into something so heavily that it's like, oh, they wouldn't be able to explain that away or whatever it may be. I think it's definitely not an issue with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I think a lot of people will see this on face value and think, oh yeah, he just confirmed that it's a multiverse story. No, he's saying the fact that this raises questions like that is interesting, and I honestly don't know, based off the wording, if he's ever, really seen or known about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because, he says perhaps. So the wording of this, it seems like he really doesn't know anything about the show, and that's fine. I don't expect every director to know everything about, every movie or show unless they need to be filled in by Marvel Studios, but it sounds like he really doesn't know what to make of this, and he's not necessarily closing the door either. And we've heard a lot of reports from sites such as Giant Freaking Robot that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will get a soft reboot in the MCU. And none of this has been confirmed yet, but I think it is interesting to note the way that this was worded, the fact that Clark Gregg, who played Phil Coulson, has been talking to Tom Hiddleston and revealed almost a year ago now, I think, that they are talking about doing a season 2 of Loki. And I think there's just too many things that line up for them to not be thinking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. but whether they end up retconning it into the multiverse or another universe or timeline or whatever they may do, I think is still out in the air. Obviously, the show is canon one way or another. You can't dispute that just because of all the tie-ins, character tie-ins. And I know there's people, the big thing now is people are saying, oh yeah, well, MCU movies can be canon to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. can't be canon to the MCU movies. That just doesn't make sense. I don't know what kind of mental gymnastics you have to do to get there, especially with all the confirmations, with the it's all connected, the way that the show plays exactly off of the films, the way it has tied into the film stories. Many of the creators are the same. They worked with Marvel Studios, Marvel TV did, as to what they could use in the show, and there's just so many overlapping factors. You can't say it's not canon, but you know, whether they go with the main timeline route or a multiverse route, I think it's really kind of up in the air, and we'll see. I think the real big factor that will let us know if Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been retconned into a multiverse story is Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel is going to be very important to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because as of the story of Miss Marvel, she's an Inhuman. So if they are sticking with that, which I've heard multiple reports that they are, multiple reports that they're not, and they're changing her power set to come from like a bracelet. But, you know, we won't really know until we see the show for ourselves. And if they, you know, present the Inhumans as a new group of powered people and it's not explained by a factor that works with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and it heavily contradicts it, then yes, I would say this statement from Michael Waldron can be taken at face value, and they have retconned Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. into a multiverse or another timeline, whatever they end up using, because it seems like they use those terms kind of interchangeably, even though they do seem to be different. So I think Miss Marvel will be the true telling factor as to what Marvel is doing with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., if they're still thinking about it, if it's been retconned into the multiverse. But one way or another, the show will always be canon, and I think especially with the multiverse now, there's no denying it. I think, you know, we've seen even some of the Netflix characters are rumored to be popping up in future shows. I believe Jessica Jones is rumored to pop up in She-Hulk, and Charlie Cox's Daredevil is rumored to show up in Spider-Man No Way Home. So the fact that they're making these Netflix shows, which had much, you know, slimmer connections to the MCU compared to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you can't bring those in and then say Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is just non-existent in anything anymore. And even with them bringing in possible spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home, villains and the Spider-Man from the Raimi trilogy and the Mark Webb trilogy, bringing those movies in, which were so far out and away from the MCU in general, you know, there's really no way you can say Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not canon because of any of this. So that's about all I have for now. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you like it, please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.